All right. Hey, great to see everybody. Great to have you here. Thank you. I want to welcome everybody that's inside, those that are outside, those that are in the family room, those that are watching in Candy Country. We're so thrilled that you are here, and especially if I didn't say it, the online crowd, as you're getting ready for your Super Bowl party. We came here because we have money on the game, so we're praying, and I'm kidding. But listen, we're really thrilled that you're here, and every Super Bowl weekend I wear this shirt, and every Super Bowl weekend the Chiefs are at home watching the game. So... And I've been praying for the Chiefs to make it to the Super Bowl, and so just keep that in mind when you come up to me after a service and say, Pastor, will you pray for me? I'm apparently not getting through, so just FYI, find somebody with a Patriots jersey on, because apparently God's a fan. I don't know why, but anyway, we're really thrilled that you're here. Even if you don't care about football, you just enter for the commercials or you wore a shirt because somebody told you to. We're so glad that you are here, and we are wrapping up our series at the movies, and this has been a really fun series to do, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you for letting us take a creative risk on this, and we take a lot of risks around here just to do whatever we can to break down barriers between people getting to God, and so we try to do it this way this time. Thank you. And it's the response has been really overwhelming. It's just been really, really cool because we've had a lot of people come up to us and say, hey, listen, this is the series that I brought a friend and they loved it. They'd never been to church before, but they came for this because they like movies. And that's why we do it. And we're so, so thrilled that you brought a friend. So thank you for trusting us with your friend. And if you are that friend, thank you for coming. We're really honored that you're here. And then the other overwhelming response I got from people was, stop making us cry. Okay, I'm a grown man, I'm crying my eyes out, and then I got to get up, and walk out of here. I get it, I'm sorry, and we're almost done. You might cry today, though, okay? I mean, here's the thing. The ladies, you cried the Notebook weekend. Guys, you might cry today because it's football, right? So anyway, we'll try to be easy on you. So what are we going to do next? Everybody wants to know, what do we do next to top at the movies? Well, the only way we could top it was to play the Jesus card. And so we're doing a 10-week series on Jesus, walking through the book of John, starting next week with a series called This Is Jesus. And we really felt like, how do you top at the movies? Well, you talk about the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and the second person of the Trinity and the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning, the end, the Word and the bread of life, and we think that's going to be fantastic for everybody. So I want to make sure you're here because this is a series specifically designed for people that have said to themselves, I believe in Jesus. So what? What do I do now? What does that mean for me today? I mean, isn't he just one of other gods? What does that mean for me? How does that change my life? I'm good with Jesus. I just don't like his friends. I don't want to be at church. So what? So if that is you, this is a series for you. If you have friends that have said, I'm fine with the church, I'm fine with Jesus, I'm fine with every religion, so what? Bring them to this series because it's really going to highlight who Jesus really was, who he really is, and who we are to be in light of who he is. And so don't miss this series. If you're in a life group, you're going to be walking through it in the study. Don't miss that. And next week, just to kick it off, we're bringing in this amazing communicator, a renowned pastor and author. He's written more books than most of us have ever read, a guy by the name of John Ortberg, who pastors a church up in San Francisco. He's going to be down here to kick off the series for us, and he's written a book about Jesus called Who Is This Man? It's a phenomenal read. You're going to want to pick that up and take a look at that and just be here as we kick off the series next weekend. It's going to be great. So don't miss out on that. So how are we going to conclude today? How are we going to wrap all this up? There's a lot of good football movies out there. You got to do a football movie on Super Bowl Sunday, right? And so we talked about Invincible. We talked about The Longest Yard. We talked about Remember the Titans. But even though that's my favorite, I couldn't do it because I just cried the whole time, all right? So that'd be ugly for everybody. So we're not going to do that. We chose Rudy. Now, here's what this means for everybody. Here's how this impacts you. If you have ever lived in a situation where you've heard the phrase over and over again, you can't do that, you'll resonate with this movie. If people have told you you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you'll never, measure up, you'll never be good enough, that dream will never become a reality for you, then you resonate with Rudy's story. In fact, a lot of us have had that kind of thing in our life because we're listening to the voices in our head because the voices in our head impact the choices in our life. And many of the voices in our lives are telling us things that we can't do, especially if you are just getting out of college and you're in that age bracket right there, because you have probably grown up in a generation where your parents said to you, you can do it, you'll be great, dream it, you can become it. And then you get into college and figure out, maybe I can't. Or you get out of college and there's no job for you, I guess I really can't. And you begin to hear from employers, you know what, you're really not very good. My mom says I am, well, that's her problem, okay? But you're not that good. And so if you're living with that, you're going to resonate with this movie. So let me tell you kind of the background on it. Rudy takes place in the early 70s. It's a true story about a kid named Rudy Ruettiger that grows up in a small town in Illinois. It's an industrial town, and he kind of grows up with this dream to play for Notre Dame. Everybody wants to play for Notre Dame. But the problem is Rudy's really small, and his grades are really bad. And no one thinks he'll be able to get into Notre Dame, much less play football. But he keeps having this dream. He keeps having this aspiration of what he wants to do. Well, then his best friend gets killed in an accident at the plant where they all worked, and it seems like he reaches this devastating point in his life of, what am I going to do now? And we all have those crossroads in our life. Are we going to become bitter, or are we going to get better? And he decides, I'm moving on. I'm going to go to Notre Dame. And just about the time he begins to take that bus ride towards Notre Dame, a dream killer sits down next to him who just happens to be his father. Take a look at what happens in Rudy's dream.
Due to copyright constraints, we're unable to show the actual video clip, so I'll tell you what's going on here. Rudy is sitting at a bus stop preparing to go to South Bend to fulfill his dream to go to Notre Dame. Not even sure if he'll be able to get into the school, but he's going to pursue it. And his father comes and sits down next to him. His dad begins to tell him about why he shouldn't go, and it really kind of crushes the dream for Rudy by telling him when he was a kid, his dad took a risk, sold everything, bought a farm, and moved the whole family out there, and then all the animals died. And it was devastating for their family. And he said, I don't want you to experience that kind of loss. Notre Dame is for rich kids, for smart kids, and that's not you. You're never going to make it there. And he begins to basically crush this dream that Rudy has. Rudy gets to South Bend and he decides he needs some spiritual advice. So he sits down with a priest to ask him what he should do. After the priest begins to figure out what it is that Rudy wants to do, he pushes back a little bit, and then he finally says, oh, why is it you want to do this? And he said, I'm tired of everybody else telling me what to do. This is my dream.
I love that line. My whole life, everybody's been telling me what to do and what not to do. And you know, when you're growing up as a kid, you kind of need that. You need people to tell you what to do, what not to do. But eventually you get older and you want to make your own decisions. And I've learned that it doesn't matter what age you are, there's no shortage of people that want to tell you what to do and what not to do. And the problem is sometimes that gets us into situations which we weren't really designed to be in and really weren't created to be, and we don't really want to be. Some of you are in a business right now because somebody else told you this is what you need to do. You need to go to school and get this degree and do this business, but it's not who you want to be. Some of you have inherited a family business that's been passed down to you, and you've just got to kind of mind the shop and keep it open, but it's not who you are or what it is you want to be. For some of you, you grew up and somebody said, you know what, it's time for you to get married, time for you to have kids, and so you did, you know, and now they're all bailing on their families because they're disinterested or not happy and have a midlife crisis, and they look at you and say, you should do the same thing. You're like, why am I making all these decisions off what you say? For some of us, it's, you know, the friends that you keep and they're telling you, this is what we all do. We all do this on business trips. We all laugh at those stories. We all cut corners at work. It's just what we do. And you're just reaching that point where you're kind of sick of doing what everybody else has told you to do. Well, the problem is the voices determine the choices. And a lot of us have the wrong voices we're listening to. I brought with me an ancient artifact I unearthed in our garage. This is a cassette tape. For those of you under 20, ask your grandparents, okay? This is an old listening device long before the other ancient relic, a CD. What is that, you know? And I found this thing, and these are special because of what this one actually is. You know what this is? This is actually a mixtape that I made for my now wife back when we were dating. I don't think she ever listened to it, but I've got it, okay? And you know what's so special about a mixtape is back in the day, it was about 3 steps before you got married. okay? Because you had the day you get married, and before that is the engagement ring. And if you're where I'm from, you had before that a promise ring, which is just a cheaper ring that basically says dibs, okay? And then before that, you gave them a mixtape. Said, what they say. That's what I think about you. And let me tell you why the mixtape. I know, listen, I'm not an idiot. I know you can now text people songs. I know you can now put together a Spotify playlist for that person with their name on it. And then when you break up, you just change the name to somebody else. I get it. But let me tell you what's so special about a mixtape. It took commitment to make. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to put your favorite songs that you believe in with this person onto one tape for them to listen to, you had to, first of all, there was an upper echelon of people that had the dual recorder, okay? The 2 cassette tape deck, right? And you put one tape into record and one tape into play, and you press play and record, and it would do it for you, and you'd sit there and wait, so you had to hit stop right after the song because you don't want the next song to start, you know? Then it sounds like you don't know what you're doing, right? So the other way, and this is the way I did it, was you get 2 tape players and you put them face to face, right? And you press play and record on the other, and you back out of the room. Nobody make a sound. Okay? And then inevitably the phone would ring, which used to be a thing that hung on the wall with a cord, okay? And you'd, stop the phone, because you couldn't. And then you're making a mixtape, right? And then if you didn't have the tape, you know what you'd have to do? You'd have to call the radio station and say, would you please play You're the Inspiration by Chicago? And then you'd wait there by the radio listening for it, recording hours of endless radio, so they play the song, and then inevitably the DJ talk over half of it, right? And you're like, oh, that sounds bad. And you'd put it on the mixtape. And then you would get this full of 5 songs on each side, or if you spring for the bigger tapes, 10 songs on each side, and you give that tape to somebody and you say, I believe every word that Chicago says here. Or Billy Joel, or whatever it is. And you know what? What Bobby Brown says is what I say. And I'm just going to call you Roni from now on, okay? Because the truth about Roni, she's a sweet old girl. She's the sweetest little girl in the whole wide world. Like the toughest homeboy fall deep in love. Don't get me started, okay? So anyway, and you hand this over. You're with me, Brad, And then, you hand this over and you give it to them and you say, this is what I feel. This is how I think about you. And they hang on to that mixtape and they listen to it because it's a commitment, right, to make that mixtape. Now, here's the problem. Most of us have a mixtape in our head of all the negative things that have ever been said to us. It's not the positive ones. It's not all the, hey, that was a good hit, you did a good job, you're going to be great one day. We don't keep those. We keep the negative ones. And we pull them together, and they sit in our head, and they play over and over and over again. It's the parent that says, you're never as good as your brother. It's the coach that said, I thought you'd be a lot better, but no, you're terrible. It's the teacher that says, you're really not very smart at this. It's the friend that says, you know what, we're done. It's the spouse that says, I found somebody better. And those are the words that run over and over and over again in our heads. About 25 years ago, I was an intern at a church, just kind of getting through college, and did this internship over the summer, and I had a pastor that I just idolized, I got to work for, and he said some very negative words to me that went on the tape in my head, and I played them every day for years, over and over again, the negativity that almost made me want to just quit this whole thing altogether. And what do you do when those kind of things happen? What do you do with that mixtape you carry around in your head? And what do you do when those words have come from somebody who should have said positive things to you? You think about Rudy's situation. The person that told him those words was his dad. And why would his dad do that? And why do people say those things to us? Because of these 4 words: hurt people, hurt people. Hurt people, hurt people. And as his dad begins to unpack his story, he begins to let us know that he was hurt by a dream his dad had, which impacted his life, and now he doesn't want to see his son make the same bad decision. And so he's simply trying to protect his son by keeping him out of the mistakes that he's seen other people make. It seems like a good idea, but he's hurting his son in the process. And we know those kind of dream killers. People that say, you know what, your marriage is probably going to fail just like mine. You know what, your kids are probably going to do that just like mine, and they're going to run far away, and you may see them again, you may not. You know what, that church is going to hurt you just like the last one did. Or don't open up and share about your life because they're going to reject you. And on it goes. That's why I love the words of Jesus so much, because he lets us know that there are those kind of people that say those things, but he's got something entirely different to say to us. Take a look at what he says here, as recorded by one of his best friends, a guy by the name of John. He says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come," this is Jesus saying this, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." He's saying here, you know what? There's two people represented in this. And the question for all of us is, who do you listen to? The people that are there to steal your hope and kill your dream and destroy your joy. Or you listen to Jesus. And then the question becomes, what kind of a voice are you to other people? The voice of stealing their hope and killing their dream and destroying their joy? Or like the voice of Jesus? Jesus says, "I've come that you may have real life." You know, this is where the name of our church comes from. It's not, we keep it real, okay? That's what everybody thinks. That's what they're all about. Well, okay, hopefully. But it's because we want people to experience real life in Jesus. And that's what Jesus says he's come to do. The problem with the voices in our head is they impact our choices. And when you listen to those other voices more than Jesus, you worship them more than him, because their opinion is more important to you than his. And Rudy decides to not let these voices steer him away from his dream, and he goes on to Notre Dame, but he's unable to get into the university. And so he goes into community college to begin to try to get his grades up, but it's becoming clear he's struggling. He's not sure if this dream is going to become a reality. So he goes back to the priest to ask him for help. Take a look at this.
In this scene, Rudy goes to talk to a priest that he's spoken to a few times now about his journey towards Notre Dame. And it's in this scene that he begins to talk about, why is it that God's not letting me have my dream? Why is it God isn't moving in the way that I'd like him to? Why is this taking so long? And the priest looks at Rudy and says, there's two things that I've learned in this world. One is there is a God, and two, I am not him. And he basically tells Rudy, stay the course, keep waiting on God, God will come through.
You know, when God seems silent and God is not moving ahead in our plans, it only makes the mixtape get louder, doesn't it? And all those negative things people said about us just get louder and louder in our heads. But yet, God seems to use time as a way to get our attention. In fact, when you read through the scriptures, the miracles that God does, and when God comes to somebody and says, this is what's going to happen in your life, and then the moment it actually does happen, usually take a very long time. The amount of instantaneous miracles from God, very few, and usually performed by Jesus himself. But the amount of stories where God says, this is what's going to happen, and then it happens later, is very common. The children of Israel wandered 40 years before they entered the promised land. Moses waited 40 years. Joseph waited 13 years in a prison. Jesus himself waited 30 years to begin his ministry. And on it goes, where God says, I'm going to use time to prepare you for what I have for you. In fact, I think that's the way Isaiah recorded this. He says, he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength, and they will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. You see, though your dream may not be to play at Notre Dame, you have a dream. And that dream may be for your marriage to flourish again. And everybody around you is telling you it's never going to work. Give up on this. Go on to somebody else who can treat you the way you deserve and love you the way that you deserve to be loved. And God is saying, wait. For you, it may be with your kids. You have tried to fix everything and control everything, but now you've just got to let them kind of fail on their own some so they can learn. And you want to swoop in there and fix everything, and God is just saying, just wait. Be close enough to catch them when they fall, but wait. Maybe for some of you, it's business. You see everybody else getting promoted because they're cutting corners and cheating and stealing from the company, and you see everybody else succeeding and you're not. And you think, maybe that's the path, and God is saying, wait. Maybe for some of you, it's your faith. You're the only one coming to church out of your family. And every time you get up to leave, they think, oh, what are you doing? And after a while, you begin to think, what am I doing? Am I the crazy one here? And God is saying, wait. So Rudy's story continues where he keeps at it. He eventually gets into Notre Dame. He actually makes the football team as somebody just to take care of the gear. And then eventually as somebody who can practice but never put on a suit and never play. Until finally one day, it's the final home game of Rudy's senior season, and some of the other players feel so compelled by Rudy's story, they want him to play, so they take matters into their own hands. Take a look at how Rudy ends.
In this final scene, it truly is one of my favorites. The players of the Notre Dame football team begin to come into the coach and say, I want Rudy to dress in my place. And one by one, they begin to lay their jerseys down on the coach's desk saying, I don't want to play, I want Rudy to play. The coach at first is just annoyed by it, but then he begins to realize when he has a stack of jerseys on his desk, he can't really overlook this issue. He needs to deal with it. So we cut to the scene where Rudy is dressed in uniform. He's standing on the sideline. He does not get in the game till the very last few seconds, and he's able to make a tackle to sack the quarterback for the last play of the game. The crowd goes crazy. They've been chanting Rudy the entire time because they know that this is his moment. And then his players, his friends, carry him off the field, hoist him onto their shoulders. And the movie ends with Rudy being carried off the field with the crowd chanting, Rudy, Rudy, Rudy.
I told you, the guys are going to cry. Oh, it's brutal. It's so good. And it just gets that lump in your throat, just seeing that kind of thing, because there's something about it that we're just wired to want that kind of teamwork and camaraderie with each other. You know, it's interesting that in the long history of Notre Dame football, that is the first time anyone was ever carried off the field, and it's the last. You know, we hear those stories, we see those stories, and we think, that's the kind of community that I want. And the reason is because God has wired us up for that. And you know why that is? Because one of the ways God speaks truth into your life is through the other people in your life who love God as well. That's why we're always telling you, you know what? Go to church, read your Bible, pray, but have people around you that also do those things who can speak those words of life into your life. And that's why we talk about things like life groups and rooted groups and being a part of Celebrate Recovery and step studies where you have other people in your life speaking that truth into your life. Hundreds of years ago, a songwriter by the name of David said it this way, how good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in unity. It is like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down upon the collar of his robes. Now, what is that? It sounds like a mess, right? But see, back then, the idea of oil meant blessing. And he says, when you are connected with other people, it is like God has poured out his richest blessing all over you. I know that's true in my life. As devastating as those words were that pastor said to me 25 years ago, 10 years after that, a guy by the name of Mike Bro spoke the opposite of those words to me, which gave me the encouragement to even do the job that I'm doing today. All of us have been spoken into from people like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John who tell us about the life of Jesus, and the Apostle Paul, which tell us how to live like Jesus. In my life, I'm surrounded by people from Fred Gray to Steve Myers to our board of directors who just keep speaking the right words into my life to encourage me to do the right thing. And I'm also constantly overwhelmed by the encouragement and the challenge of the words from my wife, who constantly speaks God's word into my life. Apparently, God likes a lot of things from Hobby Lobby hung up all over the house because it's the words I keep getting told, right? But see, the truth is, all of us need people in our life who speak God's word into our life because our voices become our choices. So you got anybody in your life like that? See, around here we have all these groups of people that we can put you into to help you find those kind of connections. This is a big place, a lot of services, a lot of people, but when you get connected to one of these groups, that's when God really begins to speak his dream into your life. The first step to do that is to go to something called First Step, which happens right as soon as we're done here in the room behind me to my left. We'll serve you free lunch. We'll take care of your kids. You'll be home in plenty of time for the Super Bowl. You got to eat anyway. You might as well come over here, hear about the church, how to get plugged in, ask your questions or be as quiet as you want, and listen to what it takes and how you can find a way to get connected around here. I guarantee that's the way God's going to speak into your life. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for your amazing grace that you give to us. We thank you for stories like Rudy's, which make us laugh and make us cry, but remind us that feeling of desiring other people in our life, that's from you. You've wired us that way. You've created us that way. And so, God, thank you for that. And God, we want to just pray for your guidance as we're trying to find people in our lives that can speak that kind of truth to us and put us in the right rooted group or life group. See our step study with some people around us just to encourage us, that we could also encourage as well. And we thank you for opportunities like that. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.